Welcome, deeply curious listener, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're uncorking a topic that, much like a fine vintage, only gets richer with time. We're doing a deep dive into Vino e Art, wine and art. It's presented as this timeless celebration of culture, of creativity. And you've brought us some really compelling sources. It seems pretty clear these two worlds are, well, profoundly intertwined. One of the sources kicks off with this beautiful line from a sommelier. It says, "Each bottle of wine is, in its essence, a liquid work of art, meticulously shaped by time, terroir, wisdom, dedication, and passion." It's a really powerful tone, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And what's compelling, I think, is that this isn't just, a nice metaphor. The connection between wine and art, it's something you can actually see palpably through centuries of art. Wine has this inherent complexity, right? Its power to transform things, not just taste, but social interaction, too. And its role in society is so multifaceted. It's just been this recurring, almost irresistible theme for artists.
Okay, so our mission today, let's unpack this relationship. How have wine and art influenced each other? Across different times, different cultures, what surprising things can we find? And how has art acted as this perfect frame, capturing wine's beauty and importance through history? Let's start our journey, maybe in ancient Greece. This is where we meet Dionysus, god of wine, sure, but also fertility, ecstasy, even theater. The Dionysiac festivals, they weren't just parties, they were these profound events. Lots of music, dance, a real sense of liberation, and wine was like a catalyst for transcendence.
And you really see how central it was in Greek art, especially their ceramics, the pottery. You have amphoras. Those are the elegant jars for storage, transport, and then craters, these wide-mouthed bowls for mixing wine with water. They weren't just functional things. They were canvases. They'd paint vibrant scenes on them, banquets, ecstatic Dionysian rituals, figures like satyrs and maenads, often in these wild celebrations. Dionysus himself shows up a lot with his staff, maybe a wine cup. And what's fascinating here, I think, is how this simple act, diluting wine in the craters, became a huge cultural marker. It wasn't just about taste, it was about moderation. It symbolized being civilized Greek versus what they saw as barbarism, drinking it pure.
Wow, that distinction really says a lot about their values, doesn't it? And the Greek symposium, you mentioned banquets. It sounds like it was way more than just a meal.
Oh, absolutely. It was a vital social and intellectual institution. There was the symposiarch, the sort of master of ceremonies for the banquet, and his job, a crucial one, was controlling how much the wine was diluted. The idea was to get this moderate euphoria.
Okay, so not just getting drunk.
Exactly. The goal was camaraderie, sparking intellectual chat, creativity, not, just sheer indulgence. Wine really became a muse for the intellect. You can picture poets reciting verses or philosophers debating, figures like Socrates, Plato, all fueled by this carefully managed wine. It was a tool for enjoyment, yeah, but also for deep thought, even for educating the young.
Okay, so from Greece, we naturally moved to Rome. And it seems like they just amplified that Greek influence. Bacchus is the Roman version of Dionysus, right? And things seem grander. Roman art, you see these opulent mosaics, detailed frescoes. They show lavish bacchanals, orgies sometimes. A real celebration of opulence, sensory pleasure, maybe even excess.
Indeed. The Roman convivium, it evolved from the symposium, but with a definite shift. Yes, there was intellectual discussion, but it became a much clearer display of status, of power. The quality, the diversity of the wines mattered hugely. They were getting them from all over the vast empire: Gaul, Spain, Egypt, Bithynia. And the drinking vessels themselves were artworks: silver, gold, incredibly fine blown glass. So wine wasn't just a drink. It was an inspiration for poets, yes, but also a daily staple, a huge trade item, and a tangible symbol of being Roman, of Romanity. It helped unify their culture across vast distances. What's also key here are the Roman innovations in actually making wine. Viticulture, advanced stuff like selective pruning, efficient irrigation, choosing specific grape varieties. They also refined the winemaking itself, better presses, controlling fermentation, aging wine in underground cellars. That whole system, the Villa Rusticae, really laid the groundwork for modern wine production.
Okay, so then we transition into the Middle Ages, and wine symbolism, it takes a pretty radical turn here. This is where it shifts, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From that pagan ecstasy and Roman luxury to something sacred.
That's exactly right. With Christianity rising, wine becomes the blood of Christ in the Eucharist, a really powerful symbol of redemption, of divine presence. And you see this depicted everywhere in sacred art, the Last Supper, obviously, the wedding at Cana. Countless scenes of communion and frescoes, sculptures, vines, grape bunches, they start appearing on the stained glass windows in Gothic cathedrals, symbolizing fertility, sure, but also the church itself as the true vine.
But it wasn't only sacred, was it? I mean, everyday life still happened. Did profane art show wine too?
Oh, definitely. Profane art in the Middle Ages absolutely embraced wine. It gives us these great glimpses into daily life. You look at illuminated manuscripts, for instance, you'll see scenes of monks having supper together, community, hospitality, but also vibrant peasant festivals showing the simple joys of harvest time, the rhythm of rural life. Wine was part of that too. And crucially, you have the monasteries, especially the Benedictines, the Cistercians. They became these real hubs of knowledge and innovation for viticulture. They weren't just drinking it, they were serious guardians of terroir, constantly refining winemaking techniques. Tireless innovators, really. Their cellars weren't just for storage, they were like labs, centers for experimentation. They carefully preserved the old Roman methods while also developing new approaches. Honestly, without their focused, meticulous work, a lot of what we value in winemaking today might just have been lost.
So you get this incredible duality then. Wine as this central part of sacred ritual, connecting people to the divine. And also just fundamental to daily life, reflecting an era shaped so much by both faith and, well, the realities of just existing. Right. Our journey now brings us to the Renaissance, this explosion of cultural rebirth, rediscovering classical antiquity. And this means Bacchus, the Roman god of wine, joy, ecstasy. He makes a glorious comeback in art.
Absolutely. Artists like Titian, Caravaggio, each with their own incredibly innovative style, they painted these opulent banquets, bacchanals, but with a new kind of energy, a palpable realism. Take Titian's Bacchus and Ariadne. It's just this incredible visual poem to pleasure. Vibrant colors, dynamic movement, capturing raw emotion. Caravaggio's Bacchus, though, it's different, more humanized, almost melancholic, maybe. This isn't some idealized god from ancient times. He's painted like a real young man, flaws and all, presented with this raw beauty that really broke from classical ideals. And Caravaggio enhances it all with that dramatic light and shadow, the chiaroscuro, or tenebrism, which, raise a really interesting question. How exactly did artists use wine then to challenge those older, idealized ideas of gods and beauty to make them feel more human?
That's a great question. How did they do that? Maybe through specific techniques?
Well, they definitely moved away from those stiff classical forms. Caravaggio's realism, for instance, it strips away the divine perfection. He gives back his dirty fingernails. It makes him relatable, human, even while still being a god figure. And Titian, with those dynamic compositions, he captures these fleeting moments of passion, indulgence. It embodies the earthly, sensual side of wine that had been kind of toned down in Greek art or made purely ritualistic in the Middle Ages. So wine became a symbol for exploring the human experience, its pleasures, its flaws, its temporary nature. It wasn't just a prop from myth or religion anymore.
Right, it's clear wine became this really powerful narrative tool. Artists could use it to explore complex stuff, earthly pleasure, how fleeting life is, the beauty of the body, nature's energy.
And sometimes, even if there isn't a glass of wine right there in the painting, its essence is still present. Look at Botticelli's Primavera. Those pomegranates, the grape bunches woven into the scene, they're more than just plants. They become these powerful symbols of fertility, abundance. They subtly fill the whole atmosphere with wine's vital spirit.
So the Renaissance really elevates wine, makes it this potent way for artists to express themselves, kind of a mirror reflecting the human soul. Okay, moving on chronologically. Baroque and Rococo periods. Here, wine in art seems to hit new levels of exuberance, drama, sensuality.
Absolutely. Artists like Peter Paul Rubens, Diego Velázquez, they used wine as this really powerful tool to express exactly those things. Take Velázquez, The Triumph of Bacchus, and most people know it as The Drunkards. Wine is right at the center of this rustic, really lively celebration. Velázquez is just masterful at capturing not only the look of the wine, its shimmer, but the feeling, the jovial, uninhibited drunkenness of the figures. With incredible realism, it's about simple earthly joy. And the Baroque style itself, its love for grand forms, dramatic contrasts, wine was a perfect fit. You see these sumptuous banquets, mythological feasts, often loaded with wine-filled vessels. They symbolize prosperity, pleasure, but sometimes also, how fleeting life is. And that dramatic use of light and shadow, a hallmark of Baroque, often really highlights the wine's depth and color, makes it a real focal point.
And then comes the Rococo. It's got that lightness, that grace. A bit of a contrast, right? Like in Watteau's Fête Galante. How did wine look different there?
Well, in those idyllic, almost dreamlike pastoral scenes, wine becomes this essential accessory. For delight, for sociability, it fuels lighthearted chats, subtle flirtations. It fits perfectly with the delicate pastel colors, the fine glassware, the carefree mood. So while Baroque might use wine for dramatic intensity, Rococo uses it to evoke this atmosphere of refined leisure, elegant pleasure. But in both styles, really, wine isn't just an object. It's a medium artists use to explore tricky aesthetic things, light, Color, texture. They're inviting you to visually appreciate sensory pleasure right there on the canvas.
Then with Impressionism, we see this radical shift. Art starts focusing on modern life, the everyday. And suddenly wine, which was already everywhere in social life, becomes central to this new social realism.
Precisely. You get artists like Edouard Manet painting scenes like A Venda de Vinos, the wine cellar. He's not just showing a sale, he's capturing the whole social vibe around wine drinking. And in his Barno Folie Bergère, Manet uses those wine bottles, the glasses, as really key parts of the composition, the story. They reflect the complexities of city leisure, social class, even Edgar Degas in O Absinto. Although it's about absinthe, it shows that cafe life where wine was just always present, a quiet backdrop. And the Impressionist techniques themselves, those loose brushstrokes, vibrant colors, they were perfect for capturing the fleeting energy of these urban scenes. Wine became an integral part of their social commentary.
Then you have post-impressionist Vincent van Gogh. He comes along and just infuses wine with such deep personal meaning, so much emotion. What's the key insight there? How did Van Gogh use wine so personally?
Well, for Van Gogh, wine really went beyond just being wine. It became like a mirror of his own soul. In A Noite Estrellada sobre o Rodano, Starry Night over the Rhone, there's this subtle wine bottle in the scene. It seems to stand for solitude, contemplation against that huge night sky, a quiet witness to his inner world. But maybe even more powerfully in his still lifes, like a cadere de Van Gogh and Van Gogh's chair, the wine bottle sitting there with other everyday things. It becomes this really potent symbol of the artist being absent, of his simple life, the hardships he faced. It carries this immense emotional weight. It reflects his sensitivity, his struggles. It's much less about the social scene, and much more about individual internal experience.
So as we get into the 20th century, wine starts moving beyond just being shown in art. It gets into abstraction, experimentation, and sometimes wine itself becomes the material for expression.
Exactly. Take Cubism. Artists like Picasso, Braque, they started deconstructing bottles, glasses, showing them from multiple viewpoints all at once. These fragmented images weren't trying to copy reality. They were symbolizing a whole new way of seeing, breaking from that traditional single viewpoint. Then you had Futurism. They were obsessed with modernity, speed. They saw wine as the drink of speed, reflecting that era's fascination with machines, rapid consumption, a big contrast to the slow sipping often associated with wine.
And contemporary art seems to take that idea of wine as a medium even further, right?
Oh, absolutely. In contemporary art, the relationship becomes this really multifaceted conversation. Wine isn't just a theme anymore. It's an active ingredient in performances, in installations. You can imagine installations where wines smell its colors from deep ruby to gold, physical presence of bottles or the liquid. They create these immersive, multisensory spaces. And these spaces make you think about memory, about culture. Then in performances, wine becomes this dynamic symbol. Maybe it's consumed ritually or deliberately spilled, or even left to deteriorate over time. Artists use it to explore universal themes, how fleeting life is, the nature of pleasure, the idea of excess. The core insight here, I think, is that using wine as the medium, not just the subject, really challenges how we perceive both art and wine. It pushes the boundaries of what both can communicate.
Right, so by actually using the wine, artists make us rethink its essence, its potential beyond just drinking. It really acts as this catalyst for experimentation then, a bridge between the everyday and something more profound. It keeps proving its relevance in art. Okay, so we've looked at these global trends. Let's zoom in now on a specific region where wine found its own unique artistic voice, Brazil. Now, viticulture there has a slightly different story, doesn't it? But still a rich one.
Right. In the colonial period, wine was definitely an emblem of wealth, status. You saw it in aristocratic banquets. Even the Dutch artist Frans Post, who painted these amazing Brazilian landscapes, sometimes included references to these feasts. Art back then clearly reflected the social hierarchy. Wine was linked to European culture, luxury goods. It helped distinguish the colonizers.
And in the 19th century, you have European immigration, especially Italians, Germans really starting viticulture in places like the Serra Gaúcha. That must have changed things.
Oh, massively. That era brought this incredible cultural fusion, and regional artists like the amazing Candido Portinari captured it beautifully. He painted these vibrant peasant festivals, local rituals where wine was right at the center of the celebration, the sharing. Portinari especially, he did more than just illustrate. He really captured the soul of those celebrations. He used wine as a symbol of hope, of cultural resistance almost, documenting this new life taking root. His work gives you this profound insight into how a simple drink can embody the whole spirit of a community.
In contemporary Brazilian art, it continues this conversation, exploring the link between nature and human production through wine.
It does. Artists today are incredibly inventive. They use wine's colors, its textures, even the lees, the sediment left after fermentation as unique pigments in paintings, installations. The bottle shape, label designs, the rituals around drinking wine, they inspire sculptures, photography, performances. The whole process of making wine becomes this powerful metaphor for time, for transformation. And what's really fascinating now is how wine becomes this vehicle for artistic expression that links everything together: colonial history, immigrant traditions, and really pressing modern ecological concerns. Things like sustainability, climate change, valuing the hard manual labor that goes into small vineyards. It's a very dynamic, ongoing artistic dialogue.
So if earlier artists were trying to show us the sensory pleasures of wine, this final segment seems to explore an art form where wine is the sensory experience itself. Gastronomy. Our sources call it the most contemporary and ephemeral of arts. Tell us about that.
Indeed. It's this idea that for a sommelier, the constant search for the perfect pairing, the perfect harmonization, elevates a meal into something like an unforgettable performance. In this scenario, the chef, with their culinary ideas, the winemaker, who's captured the essence of the land in the bottle, and crucially, the customer, bringing their own sensory openness, they all become co-creators. Co-creators of this genuinely multisensory experience. Wine, food, the music playing, the lighting, even just the flow of conversation, it all intertwines. It creates what you could call a total work of art, a synesthetic fusion, something that becomes as memorable, potentially, as looking at a painting or hearing a symphony.
Wow. So this is art you can actually taste, smell, feel, creating this eternal and indissoluble bond, as the source says, between human creation and pure pleasure.
Exactly. Harmonization, when you get down to it, is this really sophisticated form of invisible design. Every element, the wine choice, the food pairing, the sequence, it's meticulously chosen. It's not random. It serves an intrinsic aesthetic purpose, a gustatory purpose. The goal is to create something exponentially greater, more impactful than just adding up the parts. It's about synergy, where every little nuance lifts up the whole experience. It's truly an art form where the experience itself is the masterpiece.
That's a powerful way to put it. So for you, our listener, what does this mean? It means the sommelier acts like a maestro, right? Conducting this symphony of flavors and aromas right there on your palate. Each sip, each bite becomes a step in this sensory dance, a celebration of life, culture, creativity, precision, engaging all your senses.
Yeah.
It invites you to reflect, to connect. What an incredible journey we've just been on. From, ancient gods inspiring artists all the way to modern installations using actual wine. And now this ephemeral art of, gastronomy. It really hammers home the idea that wine and art are these two deeply interconnected pillars of human expression, always evolving, always enriching our lives. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the sheer persistence, the constant evolution of wine and art across thousands of years, it really underscores humanity's timeless fascination with pleasure, with beauty, and I think our profound connection to the natural world. It's a testament to how we take the raw stuff of existence and transform it into something sublime, something lasting. So maybe the next time you hold a glass of wine, think about it. Consider not just the liquid art inside the glass, but also the centuries of human creativity it has inspired. What stories is that wine telling you? And what new art, what new ideas might it still provoke in your own imagination?